spiritual food for thought.
Certain things, like divide and conquer, or united we stand, divided we fall, have become so commonplace as far as hearing them that we really don't consider the depth of it, or how it can apply to our lives a lot of times. If you saw my video on generational warfare, then you know I believe that there's a certain thing going on in the society and in the world and in the culture that divides and conquers the family in an ungodly way. Now, we can attempt to be Christians or attempt to be believers within that society and function as the society does, but I believe that ideally we can reach a different level that is above and beyond that which the society commonly kind of lives, and that may even be our call from God. Now, the reason that some of these things are commonplace, like divide and conquer, united we stand, divided we fall, is that there's so much truth and wisdom in it. A great attack that's always been launched in a lot of different ways is to divide and conquer. We can see this happening socially, happening politically, even that, right-wing and left-wing politics. I raise birds. Do you know how many birds you need to have a right wing and a left wing? You need two. And if they beat in opposition to one another, it keeps the bird flying. We focus on the wings of the politics. We forget about the bird in the middle. A lot to think about there, but they separate people, divide and conquer. Much like how we have the race issue, okay? We're all one race. We're all Adam's race, and we extremely bottlenecked at the point of Noah's Ark, yet we're taught to pretty much fight one another and divide one another, and rather than being just different shades of melanin in our skin, we're called contrary and contradictory things. White and black, nobody is really white or black as far as I know, and yet we're taught that these people are the exact opposite because black and white are opposite. So if you're darker skinned, you're taught that the white people are the opposite as you, even though there are no white people. If you're lighter skinned, you're taught that the black people are the opposite of you, even though there are no black people. More food for thought. However, I'm going to transition now for a moment and consider within the church. Okay? Within the church, the 501c3 organizations, the denominations, the little buildings where people get together and meet, there is a dividing and conquering of the family going on. I touched on this in one of my recent videos, but I wanted to kind of focus a whole video on it and how the church divides and conquers the family. There was a time for thousands of years when a family would show up together for spiritual functions, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, to worship the one true living God. When the family would show up, it would be a man and his wife and their children if they had any. And they would be there together and they would stay together. That's how it was. Now we have a nursery. Why do we have a nursery? Because even though we're taught to, love one another in a way that's tangible and can be expressed, somebody else's crying child or, sobbing infant is too much for anyone to deal with, that we've got to immediately remove them from the context of the church meeting. I think that church meeting is a far stretch from what it once was as well, and maybe that's why this doesn't work so well, having an infant in the in the main congregation. But then when the infants are toddlers or a little bit older, they'll have little sunbeams or a little mini youth, kindergarten type group for the kids, and then they'll have a little bit older one for the elementary schools, maybe the junior high kids, the high school kids, and no matter where you fall into place, you're completely split up from the thing. And if you notice it, a lot of the stuff that happens at the lower levels are geared specifically towards those lower levels. Personally, I don't even believe in teenagers. I think that was something that was created in the 1900s as an attempt to pretty much usurp the authority of the parents. And a lot of people even touch on that, and they'll be like, oh, well, you just wait till your kids are teenagers, they'll start rebelling. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've been brainwashed into thinking that teenagers exist. Okay? There is big children and there's young adults, and at some point they make that transition. It doesn't happen at a certain number. Okay, but then you believe and you teach and you train them that one day they will rebel. I know plenty of young adults who never rebelled, who never had these horrible things that people predict will happen to themselves. Okay, it's more nonsense. But anyway, you'll have really kid-friendly and things geared towards children. Then things geared towards a little bit older children. And then by the time they actually, become an adult and sit down in a regular congregation, it's not really geared towards the fun, happy, whatever things that they've grown up with. And they're like, this is kind of boring. Okay? Why? Because we always tried to focus on the entertainment when they're younger rather than the spiritual message. As I touched on before, my young girls don't need to know how to be young girls any more than my young boys need to understand how to be young boys. They are young children. They need to learn how to become godly women and godly men. And one of the best ways they can do that is by observing godly women and godly men. One of the best ways they can learn, I'm going to jump off a second here, but we take a lot of trips that go on for a very long distance. And my kids don't have tablets. There's a VHS player in the truck. We've never turned it on. Do you know why? Because I want my kids to learn to be bored. So they'll be prepared for the rest of their life. Think about that for a moment. They're constantly distracted. Okay, media, commercials, cartoons, whatever. Then they can't sit down and have a regular conversation with anyone. Then they don't shut off the TV when people show up at their houses. Then they're not putting down their phone when they're trying to talk to somebody in real life. I'll touch more on that later. But much like if they sit in a congregation, they'll learn what a lot of the rest of life is about. It's not all fun and games and, the bells and the whistles and things like that. It can be mundane at times. It can be boring at times. And to a child, to sit through, an interaction between adults may not be exactly what they're looking for. But we don't care what the children are looking for. We care about their spiritual needs. Now, the spiritual needs of the children should be fulfilled in the home by the parents. But when the families gather together as a church, as a functioning body, they should be able to come together, and the young children should be able to be exposed to older, godly people. I do believe that the family should be together. I do believe that a lot of these things, these youth ministries, these other things, divide and conquer the family. I believe that it's collateral damage. It's not the intent, but it just kind of happens because we follow the world. However, we just kind of stay back from the world a little bit. We're like their shadow. That way, when we look at where they are, we say, oh, they're way over there. We're way back here. Look at how holy we are. We're their shadow. We follow them around like a little puppy dog. That's all the church does to the world these days. We're not sanctified. We're not set apart. We're not holy. Just like the institutional education system has, categorically divided all the ages together and put them all in their own little slots. It's the same thing the church does now. And it's far from what God would want. I'll touch more on the subject later. Just want to throw out there now, a lot of churches, you're not even really welcome to sit quietly as a family, even when your family can do that. So hopefully some food for thought. Be blessed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.